We must not allow the visibility of a few to diminish the efforts to satisfy what is our real responsibility to the still unseen millions who are faced with that basic problem of being Black in a white society. So, our objective must be to assure that all Americans play by the same rules and all Americans play against the same odds. I feel this is the first work of any society which aspires to greatness. So let's be on with it. We know there is injustice. We know there is intolerance. We know there is discrimination and hate and suspicion, and we know there is division among us. But there is a larger truth. We have proved that great progress is possible. We know how much still remains to be done. And if our efforts continue, and if our will is strong and our hearts are right, and if courage remains our constant companion, then my fellow Americans, I am confident we shall overcome. Those were the words of President Lyndon B. Johnson in his final public address in 1972. During Johnson's administration, we saw some of the greatest leaps in civil rights that the country has ever seen that we're still benefiting from and building on in current day. However, I bring up this specific moment because the last 60 years of progress is still under attack. Under President Johnson's administration, our country saw some of the greatest leaps in civil rights. And President Johnson worked side by side with Martin Luther King to advance society forward. He was hell bent on making a great society for the American people and the rest of the world. And now all of that work is being undone by the Trump administration. And several watchdog organizations over March added the United States to the global human rights watch list for declining civil liberties. Think about that. The world is looking at us, and they, looking from the outside in, see that our civil liberties are deteriorating. And if we can't see that being within our own walls, within our own borders, then that's a problem that we have to acknowledge with one another, because this is too important, too significant, and too detrimental to our society. And the watchdog lists have cited that President Trump's assault on democratic norms and global cooperation have been an integral part of our declining civil liberties rating. The Trump administration seems hell-bent on dismantling the system of checks and balances, which are the pillars of a democratic society. Restrictive executive orders, unjustifiable institutional cutbacks, and intimidation tactics through threatening pronouncements by senior officials in the administration are creating an atmosphere to chill democratic dissent, a cherished American ideal. Trump's administration is trying to rewrite the narrative right before our eyes. They are trying to play word games with us. Their alternative facts take prominence over what is actually happening, which we'll explore a little bit later on. But it's important, as I've covered previously, to see through the noise and pay attention to what is really going on. Because as ridiculous as, we'll jump into the tariffs talks, for example, because tomorrow, April 2nd, most of them are going to go into effect. And most economic strategists and most companies have come out and said, be prepared for price hikes. The American public is going to pay more because tariffs are a tax. Tariffs are a tax that the consumer pays. And that has been a piece of why you've seen the stock markets just dropping and dipping, because consumer confidence has gone out the window. Everybody knows what's on its way. Everybody knows what's on its way. And another topic we'll talk about is just the failures and inefficiencies of the administration. But we went from a campaign promise of, we're going to lower groceries on day one. We're going to make America so strong. We're going to win so fast and so strongly. And we've been weakening rapidly ever since January 20th. Weakening rapidly, and it continues. Just when you think that it can't get any crazier, the sun rolls up and it's a new day, and there's a new scandal, some crazy initiative that's coming out of the Trump White House. And it's absolutely insane. And one thing, the recent visit, let's talk about the acquisitions of Greenland and Canada and the Panama Canal. Let's talk about them, because now you have citizens of Greenland that are referring to MAGA as "Make America Go Away." They're not trying to be taken over. They're not trying to be invaded. And also, no one ever discussed this. This was never brought up during the campaign trail. And how else do we plan on taking another country? Are we going to buy it? There have been hints at military intervention and just adding more troops and taking Greenland under American control. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And you come back to the United States and our neighbors to the north, Canada, and our neighbors to the south, Mexico. We've alienated our strongest trade partners, our neighboring trade partners. We've alienated them, where they have partnered together to stick it to Donald Trump and the United States of America. The European Union has done the same thing, as they band together to counteract Trump's tariffs. And now we're seeing Japan and South Korea, some of our strongest Asian Pacific allies, cozying up to China, who is also at odds with the United States. Our allies have turned their backs on us, but they all have one common message between them. We don't have problems with the American people. This has nothing to do with y'all. This is your president, and our issue is with his administration. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem recently did a propaganda video at the Center for Terrorism Confinement in El Salvador. And if you've seen the video, it's repulsive, as she does this video with dozens of shirtless inmates behind bars, and she threatens anybody that opposes the Trump administration's orders that this is where they'll be sent to, and it is a very real consequence. And it's disgusting. It's disgusting. But what makes this facility so outrageous is El Salvador's president Nayib Bukele, when he won election back in 2019, it was on a promise to crack down on the rampant crime in his country. So it's a novel idea. Everybody wants lower crime, but this has turned into a perverted operation where now he's taking pride in taking criminals from all across the world, where he's negotiating with countries, orchestrating deals to be paid by other nations to house their inmates in conditions where their inmates aren't seeing light for days. They have limited to no access to food and water, where they're being beat by the prison staff, and where it's so overcrowded that they have no choice but to sleep upright. And it's we started this episode with the United States on global watchdog lists for declining civil liberties. And this is what the Trump administration is paying, or has paid $6 million to send 200 plus individuals over to El Salvador for. It's terrifying. It's disgusting. And what's even more tragic about this is Chief Justice for the District, or Chief Judge for the District of Columbia, James Boasberg, ordered that plane with those 200 individuals to be grounded. But now it's being investigated if the Trump administration defied his orders and rushed that plane out of the country to El Salvador. And what's even worse is Trump's administration has admitted that there are several individuals that they wrongfully deported to this detention facility and are not going to bring them back. There's no regard to the rule of law, there's no regard to due process. It's now everyone's guilty. And what is so disturbing about this is one of the said individuals I had mentioned that was wrongfully deported, the how it was determined that he was part of a gang or aligned with gang activity is he had mom and dad tattoos that looked like gang tattoos. So they sent this man over to this detention facility, and he has no gang affiliation and has been admitted by the Trump administration that he was wrongfully deported. In order for Trump and his administration to move forward with their convoluted immigration agenda, Trump and little Marco went out back to the shed behind the White House, and they got a shovel and they dug up a 2-century-old wartime authority in the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. 1798. The last time that this authority was used was during World War II, where individuals of Japanese, German, and Italian descent were detained in detention centers across the United States. And this is the authority that the Trump administration is using again. It gives the president the ability to deport individuals without trial back to their nation of birth or citizenship. But there are so many problems with this because individuals are not being deported back to their country of birth or citizenship. Individuals are not getting fair trials. And because of that, there are individuals that are being deported that are completely innocent. There's so many issues with this. And on top of it all, Trump is now claiming he never signed the act. And that if you have any questions, he directed this at the press. If you have questions, you should ask Marco. But when you look at the act, Donald Trump's signature is on the bottom of the last page. If he's saying he never signed it, we need to go see Marco. That means somebody in his administration is forging his signature, which is another box of problems. I point that out because in Judge Boasberg's ruling, his concern was the individuals on the plane didn't get a fair trial to prove their innocence. They were all found guilty, and we've discovered several of them were wrongly detained and deported. And Trump lashed out against Judge Boasberg and accused him of being a radical left lunatic appointed by Barack Hussein Obama. These are all fear mongering words. These are all scare tactics. These are all words to store or to stir up division and dissent. And none of it's true. None of it is true. Judge Boasberg was appointed by President George W. Bush in 2002, and he was elevated by President Barack Obama in 2011. This was a Republican appointed judge. This is beyond politics. It's beyond politics. If you don't bend the knee to Donald Trump, you all of a sudden are the enemy. If you don't swear loyalty, you are the enemy. And that's the only DEI requirement of the Trump administration. You need to be loyal. That is the hiring prerequisite. You must be loyal to me. You must stay on tune with our message. You see the trend here? The left and other subparties opposed to this MAGA extremism need to unify around a counter message, and there hasn't been one. Hell, there hasn't even been much resistance or standing up until Bernie Sanders and AOC and Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg and Cory Booker with his 15-hour long filibuster on the Senate floor. It's time to stand up with them. Senator John Ossoff, who's running for re-election in Georgia, is being painted as the number one target by the MAGA movement. And his message is simple, and it covers everything I just said. We will bow to no king. Donald Trump is trying to find a way to run for a third term, just like El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele. who rewrote his country's constitution to gain another term in office. And now Donald Trump says, there are ways, there are ways that I can get a third term. At this rate, there won't even be another country for a third term because we're actively dismantling it. We're destroying our relationships with other countries. We're declining civil rights of our people. We're muzzling the free press. Departments are being shut down. School systems are going to be underfunded and under the watch of private organizations. That's not what we need. That's not what this country needs. And nobody asked for it. Nobody asked for it. At this point, I really wish I was making these stories up. And to continue on the message of incompetence, if you missed it, the Trump administration is caught up in another scandal, this time revolving around a catastrophic breach of classified data. So the data revolves around a group text that included Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, Vice President J.D. Vance, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, FBI Director Kash Patel, and Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, amongst others, notably the Atlantic's editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg. Now, you might be asking, how the hell did a journalist end up in this group chat? He was mistakenly added by Mike Waltz to this group chat. And inside of this chat were war plans or attack plans, as propaganda minister Caroline Levitt likes to call them, because they certainly weren't war plans and they're not confidential. Everybody can know about this. Everybody. It's fine. There's no confidential information here. I'm going to read you some of these texts, and I want you to decide if this should be national public knowledge, globally public knowledge. Alternatively, I want you to think about when the last time that you saw this kind of information preemptively released to the public 2 hours before a raid. So prior to the top secret attack on the Houthis in Yemen, here's some of the text here. 11:44 Eastern Time. Weather is favorable. Just confirmed with CENTCOM that we are go for a mission launch. 12:15 Eastern Time. F-18s launch. First strike package. 1:45. Trigger-based F-18 first strike window starts. Target terrorist is at his known location, so should be on time. Also, strike drones launch. MQ-9s. 2:10. More F-18s launch. Second strike package. 2:15. Strike drones on target. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop, pending earlier trigger-based targets. 3:36. F-18 second strike starts. Also, first sea-based Tomahawks launched. It's astounding how much Trump's administration is trying to convince the American people and the entire world of how inept they are. You can stop. We believe you. Y'all have no idea what you're doing. We believe you. You can stop at any moment. You don't need to keep going. Trust me. You don't need to keep going. But the fact that highly confidential war/attack plans were being discussed in a group chat between top government officials and a journalist who thankfully had the integrity to release the text messages after the Trump administration claimed they weren't confidential. Could you imagine if these details got into the wrong hands and what that would mean for our troops, what that would mean for our national security? If they're this lackadaisical with a group chat, just imagine what they're doing in every other part of the country. Oh, wait, that's right. Elon Musk and the Doge cuts, they accidentally got rid of our Ebola response team. And once they figured out they accidentally fired them, they brought them back. Uh, the individuals, the 300 individuals that oversaw our nuclear arsenal, we accidentally fired them. No, y'all come back. We figured out what you did. You come on back. Oh, it's too difficult to hire y'all back. Now we have to restaff. Let's go find some other people. Every single day, they fight very hard to prove to the world that they have no idea what they're doing. And to top it all off, even though the texts have been released to the public, the Trump administration and Caroline Leavitt claim that you should be believing the side of Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, because Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, is a Democrat. He's a liar and framed this entire hoax. Although they confirmed, the Trump officials confirmed that this was a real group chat. This was really all of them involved in it. And this journalist was mistakenly added. They're at fault, but they can't accept the blame. And they never will. As we continue down 2025 and into the 2026 midterm elections, one of the things I'm going to start doing each episode is drilling down on the hottest political flashpoints across the entire country. There aren't blanket issues. It's not a one size fit all. There are struggles that people are fighting for across the country that aren't being heard and deserve a platform. And not only that, but the consequences of these upcoming midterms will continue to pull the needle into the wrong direction or balance out what's right. There are huge consequences, and we're heading in to a crossroads of history. And we need to start now to put our message together, to rally the people together and prove with good leadership and prove with a strong message that others can confidently stand with us to do good work for the next generations. And that's all I have for you today. I'll see y'all next time.